Thank you all so very much for being with us today. I had the most poetic experience traveling here on the Metro. I ran into some graduates heading to their commencement ceremony at George Washington University, and I could not help but just turn to them with a big smile and congratulate them on this, acknowledge where I was going, and just note the poetry of the moment that here I was about to engage with current alumni, and I was in the presence of incoming alumni. Truthfully, students are only students for a short time. Alumni are alumni for the duration of their lives. And hopefully we can live up to the words shared by Dr. Allen as we strive to reform our alma maters to help our students become what we are striving to be ourselves, that is, thoughtful, engaged citizens. For truly, it is only in that engagement, that democratic engagement, that we are able to preserve the foundational values of our democratic republic, including that treasured freedom of speech. As I was contemplating different texts to share here, I came upon a quote that has long resonated with me and greatly moves me. It is in a letter penned by John Adams to his beloved wife, Abigail Adams, in 1777. He writes in conclusion the following supplication to future generations. Posterity, you will never know how much it cost the present generation to preserve your freedom. I hope you will make good use of it. If you do not, I shall repent in heaven that I ever took half the pains to preserve it. And I, for one, am just in great humility to be in this room with all of you who are striving to live up to that supplication, to take great pains ourselves to preserve those freedoms that those before us have fought for, died for, even lived for. And we know it takes more than passion to get these things done. It takes strategic initiative and planning. It takes operational and organizational acumen. And it even takes personnel, both volunteer and paid. For that purpose and understanding that all of us as alumni are in different stages of our advocacy, we specifically organized this panel to highlight the role of executive directors and other personnel engaged in the alumni movement. Sitting up here with me are individuals who are paid or volunteer members of their organizations. In fact, I think all of you receive at least something in your role with your organizations. And it shows they come from various backgrounds, but they all bring with them the skills, capacity, and passion to help alumni realize the vision and values they have for their alma maters. So for our conversation today, we'll just go down the line here, and each of them will take a few minutes for an opening statement introducing themselves and how it was that they got to be a part of this alumni movement in the first place, why it matters. Also, as part of it, we will have a conversation regarding best practices for strategic and organizational activities, and we will even offer pro tips for alumni groups at various stages, whether more established or very normative, nascent in stages, to then be able to think about how you all can continue to engage as effectively as possible on your campuses. So to that end, I'm going to turn it right over to Peter Bonilla sitting on my immediate left here, and then we'll just make our way down the table with opening statements. Peter.
Okay. People hear me okay? Very good. I got mic'd up and then I had to finish my breakfast, and so I was like, I really hope they're not listening to me wolf down this plate of bacon right now. Well, my name is Peter Bonilla. I am the executive director of the MIT Free Speech Alliance, based up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. In terms of how I got to the alumni free speech movement, it's sort of similar to how it was that I ended up at FIRE, where I was on the staff for almost 15 years before I came here. It was a little bit of serendipity, kind of an element of right place, right time. I relocated from Philadelphia to Cambridge during the pandemic with my wife when she took a job in biotech up there. I worked remotely for FIRE from a time while we were there, and then when this opportunity came along from the MIT Free Speech Alliance, the time was right. I'd been at FIRE for 15 very good years, was thinking about what that next challenge would look like, and this was kind of the perfect opportunity for that. So how I got here? Serendipitously. And also with terrific help from the Stanton Foundation, I have to say. I'm going to try to cover all of what Bryan said that we're going to run through in my 4 or 5 minutes here. I guess I'll talk about first a couple of key strategies or kind of tips I might give, because there are a number of us represented here. We are in various stages of organization. At the MIT Free Speech Alliance, I think we're probably one of the farther along in terms of our funding, in terms of our structure, et cetera. So what I might say to to the organization that's thinking of forming, in the process of getting off the ground, one of the real important things I would say is have a good board. And I'm lucky at the MIT Free Speech Alliance because I have a great board. Some of them are here right now. We have Chuck Davis, the president of AFSA. Bill Frezza, our secretary, is here with us. Steve Carhart from our executive committee. I'm lucky to have a really good board, and more importantly than just having a bunch of great personalities on the board is understanding where the division of labor between you and the board is. If the board is expected to be kind of contented, having a sort of symbolic presence, or if they are really kind of in the down and dirty with you, it clears up the potential for misunderstandings later. And also, I've got to say, at the MIT Free Speech Alliance, we're one of the farther along organizations, but we're still a small nonprofit. I am still its one paid employee. So the input and counsel from the board, it's not just crucial because they bring a lot of knowledge of MIT that I, as a non-MIT alum, don't. But they are really crucial in planning and helping to execute our key programs. If I didn't have that from them, we would either have to rethink our programming or else go crazy in the process of trying to do everything by myself that our board does such great work in helping with the planning. Things like planning our debates, doing a lot of our liaising with people in the student community and building those relations, which is slow and gradual work. So I would say a good board and a clear division of labor between you and the board of directors, a clear understanding of who is responsible for what is really crucial and is fortunately something I've been really lucky with. Another thing I would say, a big difference between when I was at FIRE to when I was here is when I was at FIRE, our focus is national. We didn't have to care at the end of the day how well we got along with any particular administration, how well liked we were in any university community, and that's not quite the same. It's not quite the same at MIT because we were founded in opposition. It was the canceling of a speech by Dorian Abbott in 2021 that led to the initial alumni mobilization that resulted in our founding. And we do need to be there with that stick, and we need to not be afraid to use it. But at the end of the day, we also want to be able to have a phone call and be able to take a meeting with these people without having the door slammed in our face. So there's that little balancing act, which I think institutionally we have done a pretty good job with, and where we have made a lot of pretty successful inroads. And Bryan, I don't know how I am on time. I'm happy to keep my.
How about we go ahead and move to Kevin Cook, and we'll continue this as part of our general conversation.
Please.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Hi, so my name is Kevin Cook, and I'm the Executive Director of Davidsonians for Freedom of Thought and Discourse. So we are, as the name would imply, alums and associated with Davidson College, which is just north of Charlotte, North Carolina, if you're unfamiliar. So I am a Davidson alum. I graduated in 2009, and following that, I worked in higher ed for the next 15 years. I worked directly for 5 different colleges or universities, ranging from large research institutions, medical schools, small liberal arts colleges, up and down the East Coast. And finally landing back at my alma mater in 2017 at Davidson College. And the way that I became involved in the free speech movement, I'm going to borrow a metaphor. I was the frog in the pot of water, and the heat was slowly getting turned up, and I didn't realize it. And there was a few seminal moments in my time, especially in my final stop in higher ed, or at least most recent stop in higher ed at my alma mater. There were some seminal moments for me where I thought, gee, these aren't just anecdotes anymore. This isn't just anecdotal evidence. Like this curtailing of speech, this policing of expression, this is real. And I had thankfully developed strong relationships with many of our board members. And it's funny, when I worked in higher ed, I was part of the development team, and so I was part of that external relations team in fundraising specifically. And I was very good at hand waving away these very real concerns. People would say, what's happening at Davidson? What's happening at, pick your school? That's not a real issue. That's not a real, I got really adept at hand waving this stuff away. But you can only do it for so long before you realize, I don't think these are anecdotes. This might be a real problem. And so I was fortunate to come on as the executive director at DFTD a year ago. And, it's interesting. We've shifted in the last year from being really just an advocacy organization to an organization that takes concrete action within the school. And so within the last year, we've partnered with students to host 6 events over the course of just the last academic year. We had about 500 attendees across our various events. We've published a number of student essays, student works, and we continue to, we haven't given up that advocacy work. We continue to advocate directly to the college administration, many of whom I'm very close with, right? I used to be their colleague, their coworker. So now we continue to advocate for policies and changes that we think would benefit the student body writ large. And so that's really what we're all about. And so I think, at least me personally, I have a bias towards action, right? I like to just do things, get your hands dirty, again, with forethought and strategy, obviously, but I tend not to overthink things, and that's why I think we were able to get so much accomplished in such a short order. And I think you all can too, right? It just requires just getting out there and putting those thoughts into action and moving forward and finding those key partners. So I'm looking forward to talking with the rest of the panel here and perhaps taking some questions about what we do and why. But again, my name is Kevin Cook, and thank you for having me.
Kaleigh.
Yeah, thanks so much. Hi, I'm Kaleigh Cunningham. I'm the Director of Outreach and Communications for Princetonians for Free Speech. So you heard from our founders in the last video, Ed and Stuart. They're really wonderful and helped kick off this movement, which I'm very grateful for. So the way I got my start in the alumni movement was actually as a student. So I attended Kutztown University of Pennsylvania during kind of the height of the free speech battle. I joined and began leading a Young Americans for Liberty group in 2015 at the end of my sophomore years when I started that. And the fight for free speech really had started. The stuff at Yale had happened, it was spreading across the country. And so as someone who personally, I believe in liberty and freedom, I think freedom of speech is essential for that to exist. And so it just kind of coincided with my beliefs, and I ended up becoming employed by that group and traveling all across the country, seeing this firsthand on every single campus I visited. And so we would do a lot of really fun activism, like pushing a 12-foot blow-up beach ball around campus and having people write whatever they wanted on it to showcase free speech. We got thousands of petition signatures. It was really evident that free speech is popular among students, but it was being stifled, whether that's by your teacher or the administration, or just hearing from some other students in class who don't want to have discourse, being shouted down, not being able to bring speakers. You've seen it all. So as a student who fought that fight for a long time, when this job came available, I kind of thought it was a no-brainer. Students and faculty need the support of alumni, and so I thought it was a great way to continue in this battle. So at PFS, we've done a lot. We've learned a lot over the years. I've been on the team for almost 2 years now, but I would say in trying to accomplish our mission of establishing, educating, and empowering a nonpartisan community of alumni to embrace free speech and support students and faculty, really what has led us to success is finding alumni where they're at. So things like advertising in the alumni magazine that goes out every month has proven to be a lot more fruitful than a random Facebook ad or something like that. As well as big news hits have been another way to reach a lot of alumni. So every now and again we'll get published in the Wall Street Journal or a similar magazine, and that has really helped us grow our audience, which is important because, like we said, when there's a meeting with an administrator or another opportunity shows up, we need those numbers to say, it's not just us with you in the room who care about this, it's thousands of other alumni who attended your university who care about this. Other things that have brought us success are really the connections that we have on campus. So the students at Princeton who are there right now know what's best as far as even small details on when to hold an event, when if finals are busy or a holiday's coming up. They help us with things like that. And just keep us in touch with what is going on campus. And also the faculty, I'm sure a lot of you know or have heard of Robert George, but he's fantastic and he's really leading the fight from the faculty side of things, and so we're really happy and proud to partner with him. So I think I'll leave it there for now, and we can get into the nitty-gritty later.
Sounds great, thank you. Dawn.
Hi, I'm Dawn Toguchi. I am the Executive Director of Open Discourse Coalition, and I am a proud alumna of Bucknell University in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, right in central Pennsylvania, near the Little League World Series. We have been in operation, we're in our 4th year, and my background, as an undergrad, I came from a small family, a small town, and my experience at Bucknell exposed me to so many different viewpoints and different people and different backgrounds, and that allowed me to better articulate my beliefs, better defend them, and change my mind on a lot of things. And I really want that for today's students. My career started in finance, and then I spent most of it in nonprofit marketing and communications and development. So when some of my former classmates founded Open Discourse Coalition, I was really eager to jump on board. And we have been so blessed with the enthusiasm and support of alumni from the start that we have 2 full-time employees, hopefully 3 before the end of the year. And we work with contractors and volunteers, and so there's a really neat kind of team that makes this all happen. We also have an office near campus. Lewisburg is an amazing town. The mayor is here and is our fellow. And we have office space just blocks from campus. This allows us to host lectures and programs at our office and meet with students there, and then also gives us a big presence on campus as well. What has been really critical to our growth and the engagement of students has been, I would boil it down to 3 things. One is that from the beginning, we've been very intentional about giving alumni a positive and proactive way to make a change and make a difference in what we're seeing in higher education. We want Bucknell to be a leader in free speech and civil discourse. And so we work and have been doing student programming from the start to demonstrate that, to expose them to a variety of viewpoints, to engage in civil discourse and disagreement, and to allow them the space to do that themselves. That has been really transformative in the mindset of our alumni, to be part of a positive change. And working directly with students and connecting alumni and students as much as possible has really strengthened our alumni support, and I think made it much more long-standing, because you can see the results, you can meet the students that you're interacting with and that are benefiting from your involvement, from your funding of those programs. So we've done big speakers and we do very small lunch discussions. We partner with faculty and alumni and student organizations themselves. Another thing is, with this programming and with our organization as a whole, we really strive to demonstrate diversity. Our mission is to bring a variety of intellectual viewpoints to Bucknell students so that they can hear all different perspectives and form their own opinions and think critically about issues. So we are very, very intentional about ensuring that our programs have speakers of different backgrounds, speakers of differing beliefs, and as often as possible, speakers of differing beliefs speaking on that topic that they disagree on at the same time. In the past year, I only was aware of one other program other than ours on campus that had more than one speaker on one given topic with disagreeing opinions. This is huge for students to hear respectful disagreement modeled. After one of our programs on gun control, a student said, "I didn't know you could have academic arguments on both sides of the issue." I don't know which issue or which side they meant, but that's critical. We know that civil discourse is not owned by one side of the political aisle, so we are it's not owned by one age group. So our advisory board, our alumni supporters, they range in backgrounds and diversity across all measures. And that has been so critical in attracting more alumni, and that we're united as the Bucknell community. Third, relationships and diplomacy. Peter mentioned this, we've all mentioned this. I can't stress that enough. To be kind and assume positive intent whenever you can, to forge relationships and find the common ground that we know is essential to having these kinds of discussions, to disagree really well. So we do everything from meeting as many faculty as we can, to asking for introductions, to looking up fellow alumni, we deliver chocolates to anyone on campus that helps with the program in any way. If someone if they reserve a room for us, if they run the microphones, if they hold a clipboard, we do that. And I tell you what, those chocolates have done more than a lot of time that I spend. So we take the coalition in our name very seriously. It is alumni, students, faculty, administrators, and the community. And at different points in time, different parts are stronger or happier or more involved, but it is a coalition that needs to come together to advance free speech and demonstrate civil discourse, and that's ultimately how we reduce polarization. And I'm just wrap it up by saying I'm really proud that in this past year, again, we've had more than 25% of Bucknell students who have attended an ODC program. We have 100 students or more, really more than 100, who have taken part in an intensive seminar or lengthy workshop at ODC. And students tell me this is unlike anything else that they get in the classroom. That's what they tell their friends when they bring them along. Come to ODC because this is different. And that is something that I want to supplement the Bucknell education, that I want students and parents and alumni to really be proud of the fact that we are a part of that Bucknell experience. And I'm grateful to be a part of this coalition, to see what you are all doing at your universities as we all strengthen each other and that this spreads.
Thank you, Don. Way to sweeten the deal with faculty and students on campus. That's one way to get people engaged.
We literally sweeten the deal. Yeah.
That's one way to engage. And building on that, I would love to hear from our other panelists. Don, of course, feel free to elaborate further. But how do you go about connecting with and supporting students and faculty on campus? What is that process like for you? And anybody who wants to take it first, fire away.
Do you want to go?
Sure. So I think for us, what I've said to both administrators, alumni, and students to a lesser extent, but we're meeting a market demand, right? This isn't, we're not imposing our will on the school or on anyone, right? We're providing a service to students that they are asking for. And so then the question therein becomes, what are the students asking for? And so we've done a good job of cultivating relationships across all different groups, athletes, non-athletes, seniors, juniors, freshmen, sophomores, right? We've cultivated these relationships across the board to get a better understanding of what are you not getting? What do you want to hear more of? How can we fill in gaps that you might otherwise feel as though you have? And
Kevin, do you conduct that through classroom visits, alumni events on campus? How do you connect with those students like that?
One-on-one conversations, lots of small group conversations. And this is probably I don't want to get sidetracked, but I've heard a few people say, building relationships with administrators, and as much as I'd love for us to say yeah, it's great, I mean, it can be tenuous at times. And so it's the managing, especially at a private institution, and I think we're all private institutions up here, right? They, sometimes they'll flex their muscles and say, this is our school, right? You need to do this elsewhere, and that's fine. So understanding, what you can do, can't do is really critical. But it's having those conversations with students and understanding what they want and letting that drive your programming, because that will drive attendance, right? Or get people to engage with what you're offering. And so it's not just me suggesting it, right? This is something that we partner directly with the students, and we're providing this thing that they are thus asking for.
Thank you. Kaleigh.
Yeah, so the main way in which we support students at Princeton is we offer internships with Princetonians for free speech, and we pay pretty well, which is really great for the students. So we currently have 2 social media interns, 1 programming intern, and then we also have a writing fellowship. And so that entails having students be on their 6-month periods for the writing intern or for the writing fellowship. And the idea is that they'll write at least 3 articles within that time. And we can either be hey, this event or this, protest is going on, can you cover it? Or we, of course, allow them to come to us and pitch us story ideas as well. And so, that's how we support them. And then as far as reaching out and meeting them, Princeton itself isn't a huge school as far as enrollment goes, and so everyone kind of knows each other. So as of right now, a lot of the ways that I've met students is basically one student telling me, hey, you should go meet this person. And so that's how we do it. But I would say if you're at a medium or large university, especially if it's public, I think just tabling is a great way. Go set up a table and talk to people as they're going to class. Even if it's private, I guess that'd be a good time to talk to fire, but I tabled on private school campuses just on the sidewalk because the sidewalk is public ground. And so I think that is a really great way if you're trying to get something started and you don't know anyone, is just go there and try to meet people.
Thank you, Kaleigh. Peter, any thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Pardon me. I'll start with the faculty because there have been there have been a number of good ways that we've been able to make inroads there. And it comes down to what I think, what Dawn and some of the others were saying, it comes down to a lot of one-on-one conversations. With the faculty at MIT, we had some good leads in that in 2021, when the Dorian Abbott thing was breaking, a sizable portion of the MIT faculty put their names to a statement calling on MIT to adopt the Chicago principles. That gave a good working record of faculty who were kind of willing to put their names on the line, at least a little bit, for free expression at MIT, and a number of good contacts were made that way, contacts that we've been continuing to nurture to this day. We've gotten to know faculty that are leading some key programs and initiatives at MIT, and we've gotten to meet a number of the students that they work with that way as well. A couple of MIT faculty are involved in a civil discourse project, which has brought in a number of speakers, hosted a number of debates and discussions on campus this year, and that has been a good source for us. We've also we've also connected with and been able to meet and discuss our work with the faculty leaders of an ongoing committee on free expression, a committee called the Committee on Academic Freedom and Campus Expression, which we met with and presented some recommendations to and really cemented good relations with that way. Like I said, a lot of one-on-one conversations. When it comes to the students, the students, especially MIT students, I feel, are a little bit of a trickier lot. In that MIT, it's a smallish university. It's, I think, in the area of 4,000, maybe 4,500 undergraduates. They tend to come to MIT for different reasons than they go to a lot of other universities. They tend to, compared to a lot of other places, tend to keep their head down, tend not to be all that interested in campus politics, and so they need to be drawn out. You have to kind of find them and get them out of their shell a little bit. One thing I've had success with, again, these are MIT kids. These are kids who are going to run the world in so many ways. But a college kid, even an MIT kid, can be enticed by a free lunch. That is still
True story.
That is still the way to get to a college student. And I've done a lot of these. Meet an interesting student stakeholder. Hey, can I buy you coffee? Can I buy you lunch? I'd love to hear more about the kind of work you're doing. I'd love to see what we might be able to do together. It's a lot of those kinds of one-on-one conversations, and the last thing I'll say is just we've had a lot of particular success meeting both students and faculty through a particular kind of learning community at MIT called the Concourse program, which has a sort of open discourse, which has kind of open discourse wired into its DNA and has provided a lot of fertile ground for discussion there. So I'll leave it there and we can continue on.
So no way around it. There, you have to talk to students. You have to actually go and talk to them in their own space. Dawn.
Yeah, and Bryan, I just wanted to add to this two other elements that have been very helpful for us, and I would echo everything that the panelists have said. With faculty outreach, faculty is, I would say, they are some of my most critical relationships, but quantity-wise, it is the smallest number of core relationships of the different coalition members. It's very challenging to kind of break into that if you don't have associations like Peter mentioned. A practical thing that we have found that has really helped is faculty awards, which are a great way to encourage the faculty that you do know and work with, and small research grants or travel grants or conference or curriculum development. That is something that these things do cost money. However, it is something very specific to package to a donor as well. And so that has been a really key way for us to forge stronger relationships with faculty. And I would be remiss when talking about building relationships, not to mention donor relationships being critical to every day of our work and to actually forging the administrative, faculty, and student relationships that we have. So when talking about prioritizing relationships, never lose sight of that one that makes all of the others possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have one more question to pose to our panelists before we move into Q&A and receive your questions. As you contemplate your questions, bear in mind there are microphones set up on one side here, another side there. I invite you to make your way toward one of those microphones whenever you have a question in mind. I'm just going to pose my last question and we'll move into audience Q&A. When it comes to running your operations, whether it's brick and mortar like Open Discourse Coalition or more remote work as some of you do, what are some of the pro tips you have for establishing and running those operations within your alumni group? And even as part of that, how do you go about obtaining the finances and resources to help run those operations?
I'll start. In terms of running our operations, that has definitely been an adjustment coming from FIRE, the free speech world's equivalent of a Fortune 100 company, to a scrappy startup, which is what we still are. And one of the things I occasionally tell myself is when I find myself being too cautious about something, I think you're not at a Fortune 100, you're at a startup. It's okay to just press go sometimes. And I'll say, in terms of our operational model, we are based in Cambridge. We do keep office space right near the MIT campus. So I'm able to write up students and faculty or people in the administration say, hey, I'm in the neighborhood. I'm happy to talk anytime. And having that there is a very useful part of our playbook. In terms of having the fundraising to keep the lights on, we were fortunate. Very fortunate in that our first couple of years were largely covered by a development grant from the Stanton Foundation, which let them hire me for a start, which I'm eternally grateful for. But more to the point, it let us establish our operations and launch our programming without immediately having to worry about turning to fundraising to keep the lights on. We have done more concerted efforts of fundraising. We've had a number of very committed alumni in our network, but we're also in the process of starting a larger outreach to other philanthropies just to raise funds to continue the work that we're doing. I feel like there was another sub-question in there.
No, that was right. So just how you, but pro tips for running operations?
Sure. One thing that I will say, one thing that I'm really conscious of is our messaging and how our communication strategy plays out. Because when you are small, you don't have much besides your word. And so your word has to be good. It has to be thought out. It has to hit the right mark. So I think that's one of the things I learned very well at FIRE was the ability to just kind of stay relentlessly on message and to be able to walk a sometimes kind of narrow, kind of tricky path when you have the issues to navigate. I will say also lastly, I'm always just working at this organization where everything kind of comes through my office. It's a real mix of high-level strategic visioning, communications and messaging, and administrative grunt work. It's really the highs and the lows of running a nonprofit, and honestly, the ability to be able to do kind of all of that at once was a big enticement for taking the job. But the upshot to that is a 40-hour work week and 8-hour day vanishes on you like that. When you have the small details to occupy with that used to be the job of another team or another department. It's something that working smarter has definitely been one of the things I've been continually practicing in the 18 months I've been there.
Very good.
So I would echo what some others have said in that having a physical presence near your campus is immensely helpful. So we have an office that's literally across the street from the school, which is, again, tremendously helpful in terms of having meetings with students, just proximity to faculty, to administrators. The other thing I would say in terms of physical presence that's really, really important is understanding the very dry, very banal policies of your school, especially if you are private. Because I will tell you, As much as we, at least my colleagues up here have said, we've got these great relationships, it can be tenuous. And frankly, for us, initially, it was very tenuous with the school. Our college president said, your existence alone implies that we're not doing a good job. And so
Good.
You have to manage that, and you have to manage the not so veiled threats of, hey, maybe you can't come onto campus, maybe you can't do these things. So really understanding what rights students have, what rights faculty have, what the policies are. I can tell you, I've read our college's constitution several times. You really need to know this stuff, and then you have to play with it, especially, again, I think it's different if you're at a public institution, but at private institutions, it is their club, and you do need to play by their rules and operate within their framework. And we've been very good at that. I think maybe a bit to their chagrin, but but again, I used to work with all these people. I said, look, hey, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just trying to offer to students what they're asking for. So having a physical presence, knowing your rules and policies are really important. And then for us, we're totally donor funded, right? So I've heard folks talk about grants and things. We're completely funded by the generosity of our board, of alumni. We have hundreds of donors now, which is great. We did not have hundreds a year ago, but we're up into the hundreds, which I'm thrilled about. And it's having a lot of fundraising goes right, it dovetails with communication. It's clearly communicating to folks, this is what we're doing, having that regular cadence of communication, a monthly newsletter, regular emails, storytelling. Here's the students we've impacted, here's the difference we're making. People want to know that the dollars that they're giving you are going to do something and are making an impact. And for us, they absolutely are. And the impacts are demonstrable. And we're really proud of what we've done over the last 12 months. We'll publish our annual report in a couple weeks. We've got it all, we're just making it look nice now. Those things, again, it's that communication. Here's the impact your giving had on these programming. On this programming and on these students. And so, again, it's having those relationships, knowing what you can and cannot do is so important, and maintaining those, being as diplomatic as possible with your relationships with administrators who, frankly, may not want you there. Or it sounds like in some cases maybe they do, and that's great, and I'm so happy for you. But if you're on the other side of it, you really need to maintain, from my perspective, maintain a cordial, positive relationship as best you can.
Thank you, Kevin. Dawn, Kaleigh, any thoughts?
I have a few. So I would say, as far as pro tips, they are startups. It is a lot of work. I think Peter touched on this earlier, but the division of labor, get people who are good at different things and let them do what they're best at. So for instance, Ed, who you saw in the video, is a really great business-minded person. And so he'll lead a lot of operational things, while Stuart and our vice chair, Leslie, they're incredible authors. And so they're doing a lot of the publications on our website. And then we have Todd Rulon Miller, who's our fundraiser. And so allowing for everybody to play to their own strengths is really helpful. And then I would also say the key thing too is notice what works and notice what doesn't work, and don't be afraid to let go of what doesn't work. I think just because maybe a few people are really excited about something doesn't mean it's what's moving the organization forward the best. And so being willing to be flexible and try new things. As far as fundraising goes, we created something called the Inner Circle program. And so that is kind of just a way to incentivize more smaller donors. So if it's if you donate over $100 to that program, you get a little lapel pin, and $500 you get like a lapel pin and a hat. And there's I know, it's wonderful, right? Don't you want a $500
Get the swag.
hat? But there's programming for that, and so about like every other month, usually we will either have like a inner circle only Zoom meeting with the founders, or we'll bring in a guest speaker, or we allow them to meet with a panel of students. And so that is pretty new now, but really popular. And then for our large donors, I think our idea of large is like anyone donating over like 10 or 20,000. They're like advisory people. So they get to hear from Ed and Stuart what we're doing on a regular basis. And we take their advice, not always. I think that's something to keep in mind too, is if someone is pretty much paying the bills and keeping the lights on, it's really hard to not do every single thing they say, but it's good to create a strategic plan and make sure that the suggestions you're getting are in line with that. And I guess with strategic planning as well, that is super important. I'm a nerd about it, so if anyone wants to ever meet with me on that, I would be more than happy to help. But there are really great groups out there. The one I would for sure recommend is the Atlas Network. They have a program called Leadership Lab that will help you create a very thorough and well thought out strategic plan over like a 2 or 3 day workshop.
Thank you, Kaleigh. Dawn.
My three tips are know the rules. Our first hire was a Bucknell staffer of 30 plus years. She, to exactly what Kevin says, helps me to know how to submit room reservation requests to the right people, what the policies are, so that we can build those relationships and host those programs. Our first contractors were the ones that knew the rules about nonprofit registrations and payroll, and all of the very fundamentally important things to making sure that you're running a great operation. Second, keep good records. Use a CRM or database to track your donors and your donor communications, your students, any of your relationships. Track your event attendance and cost. Track the stories that come in, because that's what you're going to be able to go back to share in your annual reports or in your donor communications. And then lastly, as Peter said, when you stick to your message, my last thing is to build your track record. From the start, we have our message and our values and our vision, but then really work to build the track record of you living that out, of you demonstrating it through your outreach or programs or whatever your advocacy looks like, so that you can say, you are who you said you were doing this for the reasons you said you were, and you can point to those examples, you can share those stories and the outcomes.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you all so much for your insights so far. We have time for some questions. We invite folks to make their way over to the microphone. Oh my word, I see people standing up left and right. We will try to accommodate as many of these questions as possible in our remaining time, but starting with, please, right here on my left.
Sure. Amelia Aria, University of Maryland School of Public Health, Associate Dean. A phrase that Dawn used stuck with me, that these experiences supplement their education, and to me it seems like they would be part and parcel of their education. So what inroads have you made to make them more formally part of the credit hours in terms of maybe experiential learning opportunities?
Yes, so far, all of our programs have been extracurriculars. However, it's been a goal of ours that credit could be offered for some of our workshops and seminars. In terms of the extracurriculars, we have done things such as partner with faculty on a workshop that allows, they'll put it on their syllabus, they'll bring their class to it, something like that. This coming semester, a faculty member is planning to offer independent study for some of the seminars that he is doing for us. So this will be our first opportunity that ODC-sponsored programs, students can earn credits for them. It is my goal that as we demonstrate that then opens the door further for credit, for class credits and that it does become part and parcel. And there's other ways, of course, to integrate it that we would like to do, such as being involved in orientation programming as well. But we're starting to forge that 4-credit path that I'm very excited about.
Thank you. Over here.
Yes. Most active alumni already have pre-existing commitment in terms of their donor interests on the campus. How do you mediate that sort of competing donor desire when you approach donors on your campus?
Yeah, I can take that. So I was in fundraising, right? Like I was a development officer for the school for many years. And that was really been my entire career, was revenue development. To be clear, I don't suggest to donors what they do or don't do with their money, right? I have people come to me and say, should I stop giving to Davidson? And I say, look, I'm not going to tell you what you should or should not do, right? You should do what feels right to you. But if the kind of impact that you're looking to have, if you want to impact the student experience in this way and support programming that looks like this, we're kind of the only show in town. But also, you can do both, right? Like, I don't want to, again, because that's also the last thing I want getting back to the schools. They're telling people to stop giving to you. Like, don't, that's a dangerous game. I tell people, do what feels right to you. It's your money. You should make choices that align with your personal values and the impact you're looking to have with your philanthropy. And so we have a lot of folks that give to both the college and to us. Some people who've been disaffected from the college and have walked away and only give to us. And everything kind of in between. And so for us, it's all about impact. What do you want and hope to accomplish with your money? And if it's creating this robust culture of free speech and enhancing and improving what's already there, then you should support us. And what else you do beyond that, that's up to you.
And I would just go ahead.
I'll just add quickly to that. To second a lot of what Kevin was saying. In terms of the donors who come to us, it's officially, it is not our line to say to them, don't give to MIT, give to us instead. But quite a number of our donors, including a number of our biggest donors, are people who have given significantly to MIT in their lifetimes and have either started drawing back or cut off entirely their giving to in order to allocate it better. They love MIT, they want to see it succeed, but they don't think their giving directly to the institution is the best way for their intent to be reflected. To that donor, we're always happy to say, we're always happy to make the pitch for us. But there are other ways that they can put that money directly to work. In addition to donating to us the usual way, we also administer a donor-advised fund whose purpose is to support free expression programming in the MIT community, which anyone, students, faculty, student organizations, et cetera, can apply for funding for to support their expressive programming on campus. We made our first grant from that fund this year, and we hope to make a lot more of it in the future.
Wonderful. And I will just put a quick plug in for a couple of resources we have out there for anyone interested on this front. The Intelligent Donor's Guide to College Giving, as well as a new Giver's Guide on Campus Free Speech Initiative. So just two publications that are available out there for anyone interested. Please.
Hi, Bill Frezer from the MIT Free Speech Alliance. And this is a question for both the panel and for everyone here. So if you have an answer to this question, please come and seek me out. You're all probably familiar, I hope you're familiar with the tremendous success Steven Pinker has had organizing dissident faculty at Harvard. I've spent the last year breaking my pick on that at MIT. I've talked to many science and engineering faculty. They all tell me the same thing, and it's reflected in the polls. They live under a climate of fear from a small minority of vocal leftist professors at the School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. They all feel if they stick their heads up, their grant funding could be jeopardized. That if they become controversial, they're going to have problems because all these people live on grant money. So the question is, what can be done to help these professors find their courage?
Well, I would echo. That's been our experience too. Like working directly with faculty, there is a climate of fear. They are, they'll privately within the confines of their offices. Totally agree with you. Yes, there's all of these issues, and then the moment you get to hey, have you thought about taking a leadership role on this? Whoa, absolutely not. No, they don't want to rock the boat, right? Because it's a nice life they have, and they don't want to damage relationships with colleagues or be ostracized or what have you. So what I have found interesting is we tend to support, or there is one specific faculty member on our campus who runs a group called the Deliberative Citizens Initiative, and they do great work, right? They teach kids to have good conversations, and sometimes about tenuous topics, not always, but sometimes. And we turn out for his things. We go to his stuff. We talk about his work, we support it, and as a result, he goes to our stuff, and he's at all of our events, and he tells his students to go to our things. And I don't know if he realizes it or not, but by virtue of being in the room with us, he's kind of supporting what we do in a semi-public way. I don't think he would ever put his name on anything, but his mere presence alone, being there, people see that, they know it, he talks about our work. So I like to think of them as the sort of, behind the scenes or quieter champions of our work. I don't think they're just ever going to put their name on a statement, but being there, I think, is really important, and that speaks volumes.
Yeah, and I think reducing that culture of fear and sticking your neck out takes a long time. It takes a very, very long time. One thing that a faculty member has told me, though, that has been more behind the scenes but wide-ranging impact is the fact that our organization has some prominent Bucknell alumni as donors, and they're on our advisory board, and they've made clear their affiliation with our organization. That in and of itself has made faculty start to feel more protected and safe. Just simply knowing our presence, our physical presence, our visible presence, and knowing that some prominent Bucknell alumni are with us gives them an extra measure, knowing that if something really hits the fan, if they feel like they are being unfairly treated, if their academic freedom is compromised or something, they're going to be canceled for something ridiculous, they now have a better sense of that there are alumni who will back them up. Yep. That there's an organization that they can go to, that there are people who will support them, that they are not all alone if they get called into the dean's office, the provost's office. That's harder to measure, but the more you can demonstrate the strength of your alumni support for the mission, for the faculty, it is subtle, but they have told me that it is changing things.
I'll just add there's a role for organizations like us in creating spaces where they can put themselves out there in a relatively welcoming, receptive climate. They can do that. We're there with them. We know it's sometimes you have to stick your neck out a little bit. The least we can do is stick our neck out there with them and make clear that if something goes wrong, if their if their tenure, if their funding, if whatever is threatened, that it's something we're not gonna stand for, not gonna take lightly, and gonna make a very public problem for the institute with. So we can at least do that. Things like the debates that we hold, the conferences that we hold. We held our first last year. We're holding our second this year. Inviting them in, creating those places where they can have a good airing of the issues, free from worry. Give them that little dose of bravery that's sometimes needed, and which we sympathize with. It can take a lot from them, as Bill said, especially at a STEM institution like MIT.
My sincere apologies to our people who've been patiently standing in line. We actually need to move on from this panel discussion, but they are available, of course, throughout the day to discuss things. There'll be a whole lunch hour for us all to interact and ask questions. Please join me in thanking our panelists.